Okay, welcome to Into the Channel, a podcast primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, come kick it with us already. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen, at ITC_pod on X, at Into the Channel pod on IG. Leave us a review over at your favorite podcast app. Links to all of our socials in the show notes of this episode. I am your host, Dino De Cespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
I'm feeling fantastic, buddy. I'm feeling extremely fantastic, actually. I want to get to this beer, if we can do that. Do you have a frosty beverage with you?
Absolutely.
Buddy, these are celebration beers.
We celebrating. Cheers to you.
Cheers to you. And cheers to a bunch of our internet pals. I want to get to this real quick. I'm doing this at the top of the show, if you don't mind me hijacking things.
Let's go.
We got a comment on YouTube from a Mr. Harold Lund, who said, "Hi guys, maybe you remember the team SK Braun from last year. Today they qualified to round 1 of the Champions League 2025. They have won 7 games in a row now. Hope you will cover them next year. All the best to you guys from Bergen, Norway." Harold, you're damn right we remember SK Braun. We wouldn't forget them. Back in the Champions League, back to qualifying. Cheers to every single one of our pals. I'm going to try to name as many as possible. Charlie, Pear, Board, Morton, Simon, Braj, Frederick, Sindre. I think those are our heavy hitters. Anybody
Charlie? We get Charlie?
I got Charlie in there. Charlie was the first one. Frederick, sorry I butchered your name first time around. That's not even really that Norwegian of a name. I should have got that right the first time.
That was a layup.
You guys are the best. Congratulations to the Brown Battalion. So psyched that you are back. I cannot wait. We got a lot of tournament left in this one that we are very excited to cover, but you're going to be back in the fold next year. We're very excited. Congratulations to you all.
I love it. Somebody let Coach Martin Ho know that we're still trying to get him on the show. Let's make that happen. Quick updates from my end. Great friend of the pod, Lianne Sanderson, took us through the ringer. She was firing questions at us, JRK style, I'll say, just with absolute ferocity. We did our best. Very fun appearance on the women's football show on talkSPORT 2. Go check that out. Give it a listen. We'd love to know what you thought about that. Another quick programming reminder. We'll be back in a few days' time with our international break show. USWNT is going to be in action. They've got a back-to-back against Iceland. They'll be taking on Argentina a few days after that. We've also got some Euro qualifying, Portugal, Sweden, Norway, all battling for a spot in the final 16 of the 2025 Euros. And then soon thereafter, we'll switch gears, head back to the NWSL, announce a couple of awards, do a little playoff preview as we kind of hit the stretch run here. But for this episode, we're going to talk about the 8 reverse fixtures, Matchday 3, Matchday 4 of the UEFA Women's Champions League. That's where things really start to get chippy. And we're going to throw a little curveball on it. We're going to draft our most anticipated matchups of the bunch. I hate to do it to you. I'm going to go first, but I'm still going to ask you the question. Mr. Grant Engel, where do you want to get started?
Well, I think I'd like to get started with you making the first pick. What match on match day 3 are you most excited for?
This is probably the least dramatic reveal in the history of the show. I'm going to take Juve Arsenal. They kick off November 12th. They run it back November 21st. So we got that nice 9-day break in between. Arsenal, totally up and down season so far. 11 matches, 6 wins, 2 draws, 3 losses. The departure of manager Jonas Eidevall, possibly an upgrade. No shot at Jonas. I think they seemed a little bit directionless at times. I think especially on defense, but I do want to talk real quickly about the offense. Arsenal leads the field, 22 shots on target. That's good for first out of 30. That's also the best percentage in the field. My big issue offensively, though, is there doesn't seem to be like a great pairing or a great group or some great chemistry between like 2 players or 3 players. We talked about this with Lianne on her show. Mariona seems to be standing out just because she's so skilled and she's so smart. You could kind of plug her probably into any team in the world and she's going to figure it out pretty quickly. But everything around her just doesn't seem to have quite gelled. What's been your experience kind of watching this Arsenal offense?
I think I completely agree. So I'd like to do a thought exercise with you. We think about the back 6. I think you pretty much pencil in Kim Little and Leah Valti as kind of like your 2 defensive midfielders. And then your back 4, we're usually looking at Fox, Codina, Williamson, and McCabe. What do you think about if you're going to play, and you're right, Cal Dente has looked fantastic. if you play Caldente on the right, and she'll move about throughout the match, she'll spend some time on the left. What if you had a young, excellent, creative, smart Swedish player to play as your number 10 for more minutes than she's been playing so far? And so obviously the player I have in mind here is Rosa Kafaji. And I realize it's easy for me to say, sitting over here in Seattle, hey, Arsenal, have you considered playing the great young player that you signed? They see her in practice. They see her in training. They might have some questions about how she's going to hold up. But I got to think that time is coming. So if maybe they didn't think she was quite ready yet, because of these questions that you're raising, that I think a lot of people are raising, the attack doesn't look quite cohesive enough. Why don't you put a genius player in there who can kind of help create and add a little more offensive punch with Caldente?
Yeah, not only a genius player, but a player that bossed the Champions League group stage last year and dragged her Damallsvenskan side into the quarterfinals. So I was glad to see Kafaji get on the board this weekend against West Ham, assist to Stina Blackstenius. And I thought that was really interesting because it feels like Arsenal hasn't put together the assist to score combination more than one time. It feels like every single time it's a different combination. When you think about all the attacking players that are available, Stina Blackstenius, Beth Mead, you already mentioned Caldente, Alessia Russo, Frida Maanum, didn't even kind of mention her. My one fear as we kind of get deeper and deeper into this tournament is Arsenal a team with a lot of B+ players, where maybe a Caldente might be like an A-, so you look at these top teams, and they're cooking for huge portions of the game. We just haven't seen that from this Arsenal side.
I'm glad you mentioned Frida Maanum, and I wonder how much of that is at play. 25-year-old Norwegian can get out there and kind of give you a lot of good minutes. But like you said about Kafaji, I know she's young. I know she has a little more of a slight build compared to some of the other players out there. We've already seen her do it in the group stage of the Champions League, play with a defensive-minded BK Häcken, and just really handle herself extremely well. So a trio of Kafaji, Caldente, and then Russo up top, I think you could do a lot worse than that. And then you're still going to have Caitlin Ford running around likely on the other side. So for anybody who's stuck around with us from last year's coverage, you'll be very surprised. Here's Dino and me calling for more Rosa Kafaji. Who could have seen that coming?
Yeah, we're in reruns. And speaking of that BK Häcken side, we're just over a month away from Häcken beating Arsenal in the first leg in Gothenburg 1-0. So I think we're going to get into the very iffy parts of the tournament. But yeah, to zoom in on Juve here, they scored 26 goals over their first 9 matches of the season, all competitions, including 2 huge wins over PSG. But they've been held scoreless in 2 straight, once versus Bayern, once versus Internazionale. They've had they've got 12 different goal scorers this year, all competitions. So they're getting it from every direction. Sofia Cantore, we've talked about a lot on this show, 6 goals for her, 3 apiece for Christiana Girelli and Emily Vangsgaard. I want to kind of talk a little bit about Vangsgaard. Obviously, she comes over from PSG. I feel like she's got to be due. She's getting shots off, but I don't think she's been able to cash to the level of her potential. Now, defensively, Juve, they looked shaky. They've looked shaky against set pieces. I think Bayern definitely took advantage of that. The real question is, though, their sort of up and down style, there's definitely a scenario where that style gives Arsenal problems just because of how unpredictable they can be.
I think it could, and I think it is at times up and down, an up and down style. I think that's a good way to kind of describe it. But I will say they gave Bayern had nearly 80% possession in their 2-0 loss on Matchday 2, and Vålerenga had nearly 60% possession in Juve's 1-0 win on the strength of Sofia Cantore's banger. I also will just say, quick editorial note, if you want to use your Italian accent to pronounce Amelie Vangsgaard, even though she's Danish, I think total green light on that. But that to the side. We've also seen Juve dominate the ball versus PSG in the qualifying stage. I think I'll take my one take chip about these 2 matches coming up. I think Arsenal will be able to win the possession battle versus Juve.
Yep.
And I think the bigger question is going to be, can they take advantage of that, or will Juve be able to soak up some of that possession on defense and then use that up and down style to kind of counter? I think that's where these 2 matches are really going to be won and lost.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see because Juventus is really good at getting the most out of their chances.
Yeah.
So it's like whenever they get into the final third, they're getting a shot off.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a pretty high quality shot at that. Now, the flip side of that is they got really frustrated against Bayern.
Mm-hmm.
Bayern's just more skilled than them, better than them, pretty much across the board. And you could see visibly on the field that they were frustrated. Now, I think this matchup's going to come down to, can Arsenal basically frustrate that side just the same, sort of like bend but not break?
Yep.
And then be able to kind of like cash in on the other side. Either way, this is the top of my board in terms of like matches I'm excited about. Maybe it's a little bit of a spoily, but I think these two back-to-backs are going to be very, very hotly contested.
Excellent pick. And it doesn't matter if it's predictable or not. Sometimes that's the way you got to go in a draft.
Totally agree. Now, second pick in this draft, who's your matchup?
Get ready to be surprised. Manchester City Football Club versus Hammarby. Nope. Couldn't have predicted that one.
Draft starts at 3.
That's right. So, okay, look, yeah, obviously Dino and I, we have our allegiances, but I just want to say, I think a lot of football fans, I don't think it's crazy to say that a lot of football fans think there is something cosmic about this game that we all love and enjoy so much. And I will just tell you, there is something so beautiful about watching a team that you know is a top team fall behind an underdog and then watching that favorite come back, get the equalizer, and then you have to watch whether it's like the last 20 minutes, the last 10 minutes of like, okay, is the heavy hitter going to do the thing and get the winner before the game ends? And so when I was first watching City take on St. Pölten on Matchday 2 in Austria, and St. Pölten goes ahead shortly after halftime, credit to them, fair play to them. They took advantage of City kind of falling asleep in front of the goal on 2 different occasions. But then watching City get that back, claw their way back into the match, that to me is a good signal of a team that is really, really hard to beat no matter the circumstances.
Absolutely. I mean, I think City can just do it a bunch of different ways. I mean, Against St. Pölten, you look at that Alana Kennedy rocket. I don't think that was on the old scouting report. It's like, we gotta look out for Alana from 30 plus yards out, top corner across the goalkeeper. Incredible strike, in the conversation for one of the goals of the weekend. But I mean, I don't know. This City team does get kind of like a level play from a lot of players really consistently.
Yep.
I think you can start from the back as well. Alexandri, Greenwood, Kasperai, I think they've been rock solid. And then Yui Hasagawa, like it's like, it's sort of like a worry-free zone. So when you've got that kind of core cooking like that, I don't want to say the score doesn't matter, but whoever's leading on the scoreboard doesn't necessarily mean that team is in control of the match. And I think when you've got that set of players, it just felt like City was always in control of that match, was going to find a way one way or the other. I got to give her a shout out as well. I talked about her with Lianne as well. Lauren Hemp.
Awesome.
I mean, I just continue to be blown away by her just tenacity. It's not like an unhinged, wild tenacity. It looks targeted, and she just looks like she's shot out of a cannon in whatever direction she's going. Like, I don't understand how a player can just be running full speed at all times, but also within control.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I mean, it is just a laser focus and then an anticipation, like on top of that focus and that tenacity, that she is like always seemingly just challenging for the ball when she runs the high press. Defenders are just like, they're never in for a good time or an easy time with her out on the pitch. I want to say this because, I mean, you talk about Hemp. Glad you mentioned the back line plus Yui, because that's obviously a huge key to what City does. I know you're the resident stats guy. I'm going to throw this around here. So since match week 1 of the WSL, I went back and looked at City's XG in both league play and Champions League play. There's no XG data for their Champions League qualifying matches versus Paris FC. Fairly confident they did pretty well in XG in those 2 matches. But in those matches, so ever since we got to the group stage and match week 1 of the WSL, Manchester City has a total XG of 12. Now, I know you have your thoughts about XG and you prefer the real G, RG, if you will.
Always.
Their RG in that stretch, also 12. So they basically, they have the quality up top. So when you have this good defense, you're sweeping away the ball a lot of times. Again, I didn't love the 2 goals they conceded to St. Pölten, but when they are sweeping the ball away and you are getting the ball up to Lauren Hemp, Viv Miedema, I mean, come on now, Bunny Shaw, Chloe Kelly's up there, Alba Fugino now. Jess Park is like running the show and just running with great pace and a lot of skill and anticipation of her own, kind of like passing players open. Mary Fowler was absolutely incredible against STP.
Oh my God, yeah.
Fowler was awesome against Barcelona, especially in the first half. You're just able to convert on your chances. And so I thought it was funny to see the XG and the RG kind of match up in those cases.
They're sharp.
Yeah.
There's no other way to put it. And I think like it's funny because like what Yui's doing kind of like on the defensive side of the field, I feel like Jess Park's doing the same thing offensively in the middle of the park.
Yeah.
You know, just bossing, super slippery, nothing you can do. She's just gonna find a way to get to her spots. I've been really blown away too by Jess Park and just kind of how productive she's been. I want to talk a little bit about Hammarby though. I mean, this is a side that you've got to take on in back-to-backs. So what are we looking at? Yeah, the same couple dates here, November 12th for the first, November 21st for the second. What'd you pick up from the Hammarby's first couple of matches, and what are you going to be looking for when they take on your side?
What do you take from losing 9-0 to Barcelona? That's pretty tough. You go to the Estadio de Johan Cruyff, and you just get absolutely smashed pretty much from 10 minutes on. I think that's when the first goal may have been scored. I just don't think there's a single thing that you can really prepare for when you play the title holders in their first home match back in the Champions League, and they're coming off a 2-0 loss away in the Champions League. Like, you're like dead team walking going into Barcelona at that point.
Totally agree. I mean, I think we were excited about this Hammarby side for sure. They did kind of keep it to 3-0 at halftime. Not terrible. And I think the third one was Alexia right before the half. The real question is going to be, I'm going to grab some Men in Blazers terminology here. What's the bounce back ability for this Hammarby side? And I think they do have some things working for them. So I mentioned the dates when Matchday 3 kicks off November 12th. Hammarby's season ends November 9th. So they've got 2 more matches in the Damallsvenskan. They're currently 3 points behind Häcken, 2 matches left to go. They've got a better goal differential than Häcken. So I think if they can clear the bar in these next 2, it's pretty much only Champions League from there.
Nice.
If you're a Hammarby fan, that's got to be something that you got to be a little bit hopeful about.
Yeah, totally. And I think when they go and play at Joy Stadium against City, they're going to try to absorb City's attack. I think they're going to play a level of underdog football. And then they just got to try to get the ball into dangerous areas. Vilda Hassand, Asado Miyagawa, Ellen Wangerheim, Julie Blokstad, and Katinka Thomberg, who, scored a hat trick against our old pals Rosengard from last year's Champions League at the weekend. Thomberg just continuously looks impressive every time she's on the field. They got to get the ball to them in some dangerous areas. And we saw, City conceded the 2 goals to STP. It's a much improved St. Pölten. I like a lot of things about that club right now. And I think Hammarby, if we want to talk about bounce back ability, I think they have some. It's just a really tall order to say, hey, what's your bounce back ability look like in Manchester during the Champions League?
Yeah, you mentioned that City defense. So they've conceded in 3 straight, and that was after 4 straight clean sheets, including 5 out of their first 6. So not sure if that's a trend, but that's going to be something that we're looking at. Either way, I think Hammarby is going to definitely show up for this one. All right, let's scoot ahead. 3rd pick in the draft. Give me Roma, Lyon. I mean, this is going to be fireworks, I think, from jump. I love that it opens in Roma. I want to start with them. So Roma, they've got the best goal differential of the teams on 6 points. They're second in the tournament shots on target with 21 in 2 matches. I mean, they held Wolfsburg scoreless, even though they gave up 23 shots, 5 on target. Against Galatasaray, hostile environment, they notched 6 goals to kind of like crank up that goal differential. And then we can also rewind back to qualifying when they took on Servette from Switzerland, who I think a lot of people were kind of sneaky interested in, just mush them 10-3 in aggregate. Got to give a shout out to Manuel Giuliano. She's playing like the absolute best player on the planet.
Yep.
Give me 1 second because I've got to send you this real quick. This is courtesy of FB. It's courtesy of FB Ref. Let me know when you get it.
Okay, yeah. That looks CGH-ish.
For our audio-only audience, we're just looking at where Giuliano stacks up against her peers. FB Ref, shout out to them. They give players a rating from 1 to 99. I'm just going to go down the list. 99, 97, 99, 98, 99, 99, 99. She is ballin'. She had a goal, 2 assists versus Galatasaray. She's first in the tournament in goals plus assists per 90 with 2.4. I know it's only been 2 matches, but that's a fun stat. 1.44 XG per 90, also first in the tournament. Real G, though, she's in sixth, only 1.2 real G per 90. But not to worry, Valentina Giacinti, her running mate, is fourth in that category, 1.34 per 90. And again, we're talking real G here. Roma, the only team with 2 players in the top 8. Also wanted to give a shout out to Emilia Havi, 32-year-old Norwegian, who's been an absolute beast, also in contention for goal of match day 2. She had an absolute rocket that I think is still rising. Totally crossed the goalkeeper, top corner, a little bit of Dijon on it. She's one of 3 players who've notched at least 10 shots, along with Pernille Harder and Kadi Diani. This Roma side, man, they're just impressive.
Shout out to Javi, too, because when she scored it, just the stone face. Just like, yep, that's what I do. Like, that, it was so businesslike that I was just like, goodness, is she mad that she scored like that?
She's a killer.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I mean, you're totally right. Like, when we talk about Roma, we talked about these 2 players a lot last year. But Valentina Giacinti and Manuela Giuliano, these are 2 of the absolute elite players over in Europe. No question about it. And now if you have a player like Javi really kind of rise up, or you have a player like Evelyn Vienne really kind of rise up to complement those 2, this team just has a shot against anybody in this tournament. It is just going to be really, really tough to compete against Lyon.
No arguments here, man. So looking at Lyon, how about 106 shot creating actions?
Sure.
Over 2 matches.
Okay.
For first in the tournament.
All right, yeah.
Hard to wrap your head around that. That's 10 more than Barcelona. But who is second in that category? AS Roma. Let's fucking go with 99. It's going to be some fireworks, as mentioned. So who on this Lyon side is really cooking offensively? You got to look at Melchi Dumornay. She notched 23 of those shot creating actions, again, in 2 matches. I mean, that's like really hard to wrap your head around. You can also rewind all the way back to the beginning of the round, where her absolute dime to Wendy Renard from about 35 yards out basically kicked off the scoring. She was so far away from Renard. She was like the 7th player to reach Renard in the celebration.
That's a good stat. I like that.
Manuela Giuliano tied for second in shot creating actions with 20. So, I mean, I think the offense is just going to be flowing pretty much in every direction. Also, I had to give a quick shout out to Vanessa Gilles, who is 11 for 11 on passes over 30 yards. So she's letting it rip as soon as she wins back possession. I mean, this Lyon side feels like they've got something to prove, but I don't know. On the flip side, Roma feels like a team that could be kind of like elevating up like into this upper echelon. I know they're not quite having the success in Serie A Feminile, but you look at their ages as well. I mean, this is a team of like rock solid veterans, as you mentioned, like Emilia Havi, 32 years old, been there, done that. Saki Kumagai, 34, Giacinti and Elena Linari, they're 30. And then they've got a whole fleet of great players like in that 26, 27 range. Giuliano, Vienne, De Giuliano, Hawa Sissoko. And then they can also bring on the wunderkind, Giulia Dragoni, 17-year-old rock star. So they've got a lot of different moves that they can go to. But yet Lyon absolutely cooking. Haran's cooking. Marozan's cooking. This is going to be a battle.
Can I hit you with a bit of a strange narrative piece of this? Maybe it's not that strange, but I think you had mentioned this match is going to happen on November 13th, the second day of match day 3.
Mm-hmm.
Can we assign any value to the idea that Manchester City Football Club, Arsenal, and Barcelona play on November 12th? And I would assume that, no offense to you, at least Barcelona and Manchester City are going to win.
Come on, man.
free shot. And likely Arsenal is going to win. Does Lyon kind of look at that result, especially because Lyon fans would probably look at me and be like, go ahead. How many Champions League have you guys won? None? Okay, maybe you take a seat on this one. Maybe they look at that Barcelona match and the Lyon players go, okay, bet. You guys beat St. Pölten. Maybe you beat them 5-0, 6-0. So it could get ugly over there. Watch what we do to Roma, who's one of the better teams in this competition.
Honestly, I just don't see it. I don't see that happening.
Wow.
They're playing really intense and they just look so much sharper and more confident than last year. Like, I think there was a huge benefit to them bringing the band back together pretty much. It's like mostly the same team. And, we saw, just to kind of rewind all the way back to the top of the show, Braun last year.
Yeah.
Braun took a point from Lyon. Obviously, snow game.
Heart of a Lion.
Sports movie shit. Yeah.
Let's go.
You already know. But apologies to our friends at Bergen, but this Roma side looks like the better side than Ron was last year. And they're real stakes for Roma. They're sitting at the top of the group.
Yeah.
And I think they're ready to kind of make a leap. I'm going to kind of throw out a tepid take here and say, I feel very confident that Roma takes a point, maybe a couple, maybe 3 from this reverse fixture. I don't think that they get blanked in these 2 matches.
All right. So maybe a win in one of the 2 matches, but also possibly maybe at least a draw. Can we say at least a draw?
At least a draw. Yeah, I'm with that.
Okay.
At least a draw. I'll hang my rep on that. Let's go.
All right. I like it. It's funny to say, like we're talking about, Champions League group stage. Lyon is a giant. I mean, you already know what time it is with the pedigree and the roster, the history, but that's why you play the matches. I like how in you are on Roma's development. And I think it's played out so far in the results that we've seen. So I don't think you're foolish for thinking that.
Yeah, man. Excited about that one. Also excited to hear who you're taking 4th in our draft here.
I think there's one pretty obvious pick here that I would be foolish if I did not make this pick. And I think we got to look at Real Madrid versus FC Twente.
Ooh.
Because those are going to be 2 matches back to back. You talk about the chippiness that happens. I mean,
let's go.
These teams playing each other and there being a lot of chippiness and physicality, that's like, if we're going to talk about betting, that's like a minus 800. Like that's happening. Mm-hmm. There's going to be some shoving at some point in these 2 matches between these 2 teams. Your squad, Las Blancas, Real Madrid.
Let's go.
Looking good, man. Melanie Leopolds, Evan Navarro, Senia Brun, Caroline Weir. This is not last year's Real Madrid. There is a lot of quality. Their last victory was their first win in the group stage in 6 matches.
Wow.
I believe you refer to that as growth.
Totally. And you could even zoom in. All of last year's group stage, 5 goals for Real Madrid.
Yep.
In 2 matches this year, 6 goals. So they're already ramping up their production for sure. Their shot on target rate jumped from 34% to 42%. And then their goal conversion rate, basically how many shots on target are they cashing on, 33% up from 23% last year. So pretty much across the board. I mean, you already know the kind of injection of talent that they saw, whether it's players coming back from injury or new signings that I think have really worked out in a huge way. This Real Madrid side looks for real. Both of these teams on 3 points as well. So there's a ton to play for. Essentially, if you think Chelsea's got that 1 seed locked up, then this reverse fixture is for the remaining spot in the knockout stage. So this is going to be some big time football.
100%. I mean, one thing I want to look at here, and this is going to sound real nitpicky. So my apologies to Linda Caicedo, any Colombian pals that we might have on the internet. There were multiple moments on Matchday 2 against Celtic where Celtic, they hung in as best they could. We've talked about like these clubs kind of being different places in their footballing journey. There were multiple points during that match where Caicedo was out on the left wing, and she is very obviously trying to get the ball onto her strong foot, onto her right foot. And the defender just had the scouting report in their head very clearly. It was like, I'm not letting you do that. I will not let you do that. And Caicedo is a great passer with her left foot, and she was firing in some crosses. But she was a little hesitant, it looked like, to take shots on goal with that left foot. I just want to monitor that as this goes. Like, how much can the book be out on a young player like that? And on the reverse side, she is a young, unbelievably dynamic player. Wait until she gets that left foot. If she's able to develop it, then she might turn into the player who goes, I'll just start firing near post with my left foot, and let's see if your keeper can stop it.
Yeah, and that might actually happen on November 13th. She's just such a super computer of a player that I wouldn't put it past her to be like, okay, this is something I'm going to work on in these 2-3 weeks. But I mean, she looks so fast and so quick to process, so just unholdable, unguardable.
Yep.
That I think, like, to your point, once she harnesses all of that power, she's definitely on track to get into that best player in the world conversation. I'm hoping this is the tournament where, much like the 23 World Cup, where she definitely announced herself on that Colombian side, where she can announce herself on the European stage.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, just so fast, so smart. Can't say enough about her. She has a role to play, and these are massive matches for Real Madrid. I mean, FC Twente is a really good side out of the Netherlands, but, they weren't around last year, and Real Madrid had such a sour experience last year that Madrid has to be looking at these two fixtures like, okay, this is our time. We're level on points with Twente. We have to separate ourselves from them right now. This is the only time for us to really do that. Maybe on a draft where you have two neutrals, not an Arsenal supporter and not a Manchester City supporter, I think this probably would have gone higher in the draft.
I think that's fair to say. I mean, this is a great even matchup for sure.
Yeah.
And Twente, we talked about that in shows past. Championship DNA, they play like champions. I think they played Chelsea to, at the very least, a draw in the last 30 minutes of that match. Obviously, and I think there's no reason to take your foot off the gas either. Goal differential matters. You kind of want to kind of separate yourself as much as possible. And Twente looked really great once they kind of settled into that game. Over 2 matches, they're 10 shots on target from 19 attempts. So they're pretty clinical. Once they get a look, they've turned that into 3 goals. Nikki Van Dijk, she's got 4 shots on target, 1 goal. So you already know what time it is there. And then I found some interesting stats as well. So defenders Anna Knoll and Liska Carlier, you look at their long pass attempts. They're 1 and 2 in terms of long passes completed in the entire group stage field.
Awesome.
So you already know what kind of ball they're trying to play. Anna Knoll, 25 for 33. Carlier, 24 of 27. And again, this is according to FB Ref. Long passes defined as passes of 30 plus yards or more. So I think if they can get that going against Real Madrid, that's what they want to do. That's the recipe that I think they're going to bring to the table. And then up front, I think they can be dangerous.
100%. And Carlier had that great assist on Matchday 1 against Celtic. Long ball over the top. Excellent passer. Again, out of Arizona State. Just your standard Arizona State Sun Devil playing in the Champions League. That's how that works. I will say another thing. Like, you talk about them playing as a champion and having this DNA from Eredivisie round. I think it's really interesting. I was looking at them on FB Ref, as we have cited, one of our go-to stat machines, stat databases that we look at. First, I sorted by goals, and then I noticed, I was like, oh man, everybody who has either a goal or an assist is either 25 or younger. And then I kept looking down the roster. This roster, the oldest player on their team is Kaylee Van Doren, who is only a few months removed from her 25th birthday. I think the average age of this team is not higher than 23. Like, this is a young team. They have a few teenagers on the team. A couple of the teenagers are goalkeepers who don't get much playing time. And they play, from at least what we have seen. And again, we're not going to pretend like we're experts in Eredivisie round. It's a little tricky to try to watch their league matches over here. You know how that goes. But they play smarter than their age. And I don't want to sound pessimistic about this, but I know you've heard the cliche. We've heard it watching sports all our lives. Sometimes announcers and broadcasters love to say they're too young to know how big of a spot this is. Like they don't even know they should be feeling the pressure. That can work in certain spots. It can work for a game. It might work for a stretch of like a game or two. And I guess we're only talking about 2 fixtures going up against Real Madrid. But eventually, the experience and the smarts and the know-how, that does catch up to you. It's no fault to them. The only way you get that stuff is by playing in these important matches. And so I have that in the back of my head. Will that catch up to them at some point in this group stage?
I think it's possible. They're kind of like the anti-Roma in that sense. Even though they are young, physically, I mean, whatever they're doing strength and conditioning wise, they're killing. Give that person a raise, whoever's in charge of that department, because they look tough, man. Like they kind of stared Chelsea down. They look big, they look strong, they look fast. Yeah. And they know how they want to play. Like, are they going to be able to get it done? Do they have the skill level, player for player? Like, we're going to see how they stack up against Madrid. But physically, I don't think there's any question. And I think that probably, Chelsea's obviously playing in the WSL, so they've got a big workload. But that could be the reason why Twente looks so good the last third of that match, just because, I mean, it could just be a physicality advantage.
Yeah, I like that. And it's only a matter of time. I mean, I know you obviously got pals down in Florida. You're a Miami native. Eventually, the Miami Heat is going to look at FC Twente's strength and conditioning team and be like, hey, who do you got over there that we can recruit? Because you already know Miami Heat are good at that kind of thing. So
hell yeah,
they'll just go and pluck.
Yeah. Speaking of, let me give my little give a little squad a shout here.
Of course. Nice.
Let's go ahead. 5th pick in the draft. Give me the team that definitely caught my eye in qualifying. We haven't quite seen them hit their stride full. Galatasaray, Wolfsburg, November 13th and the 20th. Really looking forward to this matchup. Really looking forward to see what Wolfsburg's going to be able to do. We talked about this a couple weeks back. There was going to be a good team or two sitting on 0 points after 2 matches. Mm-hmm. That just so happens to be Wolfsburg. Now, when you look at how productive or not productive their offense has been, how about 35 shots, 0 goals for this squad with all that talent? Not sure if it's bad luck. Not sure if it's just, maybe pushing too hard. What other teams are doing against them defensively. Galatasaray probably exactly what the doctor ordered for this Wolfsburg side. Kind of excited about this one. I really want to see if Wolfsburg is going to be able to get things back on track here.
I think they will, and I feel like I've learned a lesson, and I realize this is our Champions League show. I know some of our pals from around the world don't tune into our NWSL shows.
What?
I know, I can't believe it either. But early in the NWSL season, the team that plays out in San Francisco, Bay FC, they employ both Rachel Kundanaji and Asisa Oshwala. And I said early in the season, when they were down, I said, I still think they could make the playoffs. Obviously, American style, we have playoffs over here. I said, I think they could still squeak into the playoffs because the attack is good. And then there was they had another loss after that, and I was a coward, a huge coward. And I backed off of it, and I was like, you know what? I'm giving up on Bay FC. And I was wrong. They're going to make the playoffs. And so I say all of that to say this. I said Wolfsburg was going to go on the revenge tour. I said they have enough attacking talent. They have enough talent across the roster in general. I realize they're sitting on 0 points right now. You gave some great stats on our last show about how you got to get at least to 9 or 10 points if you want to think about making it out of the group stage. So I'm here to tell you the Wolfsburg revenge tour starts on match day 3. They're going to win both matches versus Galatasaray. That'll get them to 6, and then they're going to beat Roma. No. And they're going to get to 9. No. I'm making the prediction right now. They're going to rattle off 3 wins in a row in this tournament and get to 9 points, and then anything can happen from there.
That would be incredibly interesting because then, Roma's got Gala one more time.
Yep.
And then Wolfsburg, that would be the decider. Wolfsburg will have another one against Lyon.
That's the tricky part at the end.
Yeah, that's where it gets a little shaky. Either way, they're going to have to get things back on track. Galatasaray, Roma cooked them. I think they really, I think I texted you this the day of the match. Galatasaray played tougher against Lyon than they did against Roma. Roma gave them a harder time. I'm not, transitive property. Who knows? I'm not sure what to take away from it. We'll see. But I think that's something to keep an eye on, man, because I think all of a sudden now, if you're Wolfsburg, there's a lot of pressure.
Yep.
You've got to go to Turkey, hostile environment. You've got teenagers smoking in the stands. We covered that.
I love it.
Drink one.
I love it. What a tournament.
Yeah. That's a tough team. Andrea Stashkova, she gets on the score sheet, I think, for Galatasaray's first Champions League goal, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Definitely for their first group stage goal. She's a handful. Kata Usme, you already know what time it is with her. I think they're going to play Wolfsburg tough. This is definitely not going to be a walk. I absolutely expect the trend to continue with the shrinking goal differentials. Obviously Barcelona, Hammarby aside. I think we're going to continue to see tough, hard-fought matches, especially as the group stage kind of gets deeper and deeper here, because a lot of teams, realistically, they're still in it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I wouldn't think that Wolfsburg is going to blow out Galatasaray, especially not in Turkey. But I just think the talent is there. They got a big win recently over Bayern Munich in league play. I think they're starting to kind of right the ship. And honestly, if we talk about just what the doctor ordered, no disrespect to Galatasaray, like you said, Stashkova and the attack there, they can be threatening. But I think if you're Wolfsburg, you just have to look in the mirror. Bierenstein has not yet scored in the Champions League. She's putting up a good amount of goals already in Frauen Bundesliga. Time to make it happen in the Champions League. It's really, it's scary hours for Wolfsburg. With your pedigree as a former Champions League winner, you can't go out of this tournament without collecting at least 6 points. And if you're going to get those 6 points, you probably should get them against Gala and then see where you go from there.
All right, man. You're on record. I love it.
Let's go.
I love the Wolfsburg pick. I called Wolfsburg to get to the group stage before the tournament even started, before the group stage even started. Might have been a little bit premature just because obviously Roma's in that mix. I think when you look at Lyon, Roma, Wolfsburg, 3 teams for 2 spots. This is essentially why we watch Champions League. Let's scoot ahead, though. 6th pick in the draft. We got 3 matchups to choose from. Where do you want to go from here?
I want to talk about Barcelona. They're good at football.
Yep.
They won a football match 9-0 against Hammarby. Hammarby is not a bullshit team, and they beat them 9-0. And they just started pouring in goals at like the 80th minute. They're like, can we add 4 more here quickly, or however many they scored? They are goal differential destroyers.
Yeah.
There was a time in Liga F earlier this season where Real Madrid was top of the table, and then Barca just rattles off like a 10-1 victory and then a 7-0 victory, or like, whatever it looked like. Carolina Graham-Hansen is playing football as though she is absolutely furious with me for not naming her in my top 3 players in the world on the women's football show with Lianne Sanderson. When Lianne asked me my top 3 players, and I did not name CGH, you, to your credit, did, of course.
Named her first, by the way, just so I want to be on record, just in case you missed the episode with Lianne.
A good call, and she's playing like it. I mean, St. Pölten, and again, an improved St. Pölten, who can look threatening in spots and is able to play physical, especially right in front of goal, where they kind of took advantage of City on 2 of those chances. I just think that they are going to have to hold on for dear life in these two fixtures. And honestly, like, I agree with you that the talent gap is closing in all of world football. The goal differential is going to start to close in all of world football. I think St. Pölten would feel pretty okay about themselves. I think they have the right to feel okay about themselves if they leave these 2 fixtures with a goal differential of -8. Because I think that Barcelona is going to lay it on. And honestly, I don't, obviously I like a little hyperbole. I would not be surprised if Barcelona leaves these 2 fixtures with a goal differential just against STP of like +15.
The +8's interesting because on the year so far, there are 36 goals for, 5 against. The goal differential in each game is over 4. It's like 4.4. Do some quick math here. 4.43 is their goal differential. So you would expect an 8.86 if my math is correct in those 2 matches against St. Pölten. I pulled some other interesting stats here. I did a little bit of analysis here. I got the Apple IIe warmed up. I loaded my paper in the printer with the holes on the side. You got the dot matrix, really cooking. I looked at the goal differentials in each match across Liga F, WSL, and NWSL. So as expected, the NWSL goal differential on average in a given match is 1.31. Pretty close. WSL is 1.45. Liga F is 1.81. Right off the bat, you can see that, Liga F, if we just take that as an indicator, a little bit less competitive. Now, what I find interesting here is Barcelona's chasing City. Now, City's going to have a little bit of a haul through the WSL where things are tougher. And I think the attrition is going to start to kick in. Barca's going to be looking at the City side like, hey, let's put our foot on the gas. Let's crank up this goal differential. We're going to meet City again. Barcelona's got to be thinking we do not want to be the 2 seed. Because if you're the 2 seed, chances are you've got to play 3 straight 1 seeds to win the whole thing.
Sure.
Or even just to reach the final. You'll have a 1 seed in the quarters, probably a 1 in the semis, and then you're probably going to meet a 1 in the final. Much, much, much tougher road to get there as a 2 seed, best team in the world. We already know the story there, but that's got to be something that they're thinking about. And the last fun stat I have, Houston Dash this year, they've had 9 different goal scorers. Houston Dash last year, 8 different goal scorers. Barcelona versus Hammarby, 7 different goal scorers. It's just ridiculous.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we could compare Barcelona to the Houston Dash. I think that's fair. No, that's fantastic. I love that. Shout out to the Houston Dash. You guys can do something. Tarciane, great young player, Brazilian defender, one of the better center backs in the league.
The Ballon d'Or, finalist, right?
I gave you the Wolfsburg take. I'm going to crack a beer ski. 2 beer show for this. It's a celebration of life. All right. Here's the other take on the goal differential between Barcelona and Manchester City. It's over. You can't even consider it if you're Manchester City. It doesn't matter anymore. Like that, you have to go to Barcelona, and now you have this amazing 2-0 victory at Joy Stadium in Manchester. That's great. Bully for you. When you go to Estadio de Johan Cruyff and you play Barcelona, you have to get a result in order to make sure that you don't end up level on points with them, because the goal differential conversation, that's in the rearview mirror. You have absolutely, positively 0% chance of winning that against Barcelona. They just score too much. You cannot keep up with them. If you're Manchester City, it gives you something to play for in that final match of the group stage.
Absolutely. The beauty of City getting that first win is like, we're going to get tense football all the way through this entire group stage. N10, which is going to be awesome. The last thing I want to mention about Barcelona, this is just an embarrassment of riches, as you mentioned. There was a play where I think Bonmati puts in a cross right to Eva Paior.
Yep.
She like very uncharacteristically whiffs on it, but Claudia Pina's like standing right behind her and does the exact same sweeping motion. Just smashes it home. It looked like, you know, in Madden when like the two players are like following the same, computer like track. I was just like, this is like pretty eerie. And then shout out to Claudia Pina, who I think on any other team in the world is essentially one of the focal points on offense. She is so good and so deadly. I just love her game. I want her to get more minutes. I hope they can find a more substantive role for her because she's just awesome to watch.
100%. I mean, just add her to the list of just players that you just cycle through. They can get a goal at any time. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter what's happening in the match. I mean, you think about the synchronized tacklers or the divers in Madden. It's just like everybody on Barcelona knows what to do, and they know like where the pass is going to be, especially if it's coming from Bonmati. You know, it's unbelievably consistent. You know where to swing. Paior, I think uncharacteristic is a good way to put it, but it doesn't matter. Her teammate's there to pick her up 3 or 4 yards right behind her.
Yep. Easy 3Z. Let's go ahead. 7th pick in the draft. I'm going to go with one of the teams in my group. Give me Bayern Vålerenga. I think this is going to be a sneaky fun one. We talked about Bayern when we were going through Juve's results here. Bayern just looked better than Juventus pretty much at every facet of the game. And I think they look, I mean, for lack of a better word, serious about this tournament.
Yep.
They got caught up in the group of life last year, that Group C, with all those like magical teams that all had a shot to get through. This year, none of that. They smash Arsenal week 1. They outclass Juve week 2. Now they get Vålerenga in the back-to-back, with Matchday 3 happening at home. So they've got a chance to get to 9. I mean, they've got a chance to cruise to 9 realistically. I think when Bayern drew Arsenal, or vice versa, when Arsenal drew Bayern, I think Bayern was like, hey, let's not fuck around here. We need this 1 seed. Every match, every minute. We want to win basically every matchup on the pitch. And they're playing like a team that at least wants to go out and do that. They've always had the class. And now the players are playing up to that level. Pernille Harder, 4 goals in 2 matches. No other player in the field's got more than 2 goals.
Wow.
So she's doubled the field. She's absolutely cooking. Notches that hat trick in 15 or so minutes against Arsenal. Gets on the score sheet again against Juve. I just think Bayern's like really, they look like a team on the mission.
100%. I mean, you just look at the names on the team sheet. Pernille Harder, Clara Buell, Dahlmann, Lohmann, Georgia Stanway's been awesome. Julia Gavin, Vigos Dottir has been great. Gross has been good in goal.
Oh my God, yeah.
Just an unbelievable array of talent. I underestimated him before we came into this tournament. You were on it early with Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. Talk about 2 gigantic clubs.
Yep.
But these are just entities that are not used to going out sad in the Champions League, even if their women's clubs are like in different spots in their footballing journeys. But Bayern Munich and Madrid are both just very clearly on a mission in this Champions League to kind of look back at last year and go, never again. We don't do that anymore. We have the talent. We have the infrastructure. We know what to do to compete in this tournament. And I think Bayern Munich is showing it in spades.
Absolutely. And I think a couple players that haven't really seen a lot of burn, Jovana Damjanovic, Leia Schuler, like these are heavy hitters that, can't log too many minutes. The last quick thing about the Revenge Tour piece, you rewind back to last year, all 7 knockout stage matches went to the favorite. I didn't think we saw any upsets in the knockout stage. You could make the case that there was only really 3 upsets for group stage teams not making it. You can say, okay, Häcken over Madrid, that was an upset. Ajax over Bayern, huge upset.
Yeah.
And then maybe you can look at, Benfica and Eintracht Frankfurt and, kind of quibble with that. So for the most part, it was pretty chalk. Now for Bayern to have gone out, clearly the biggest failing from a favorite last year. So I think that's kind of what kind of fueled me coming into the season. It's like, this is a super team that really didn't show up last year. They're second in the field in terms of passing, just fractions of a percentage point behind Barcelona. So they're playing super crisp. And then when you look at Vålerenga, they're the least effective passing team in the field. 67.7% of their passes completed. That is going to make for a very long couple of 90-minute affairs against a side like Bayern.
It's going to be tough sledding for Vålerenga, but I mean, there are a lot of things to still like about this side. They obviously win the league this year in top Syrian. Against Juventus, even though they lost that match 1-0, they did a lot of great stuff in that match. They won possession. They pretty much did everything but score, which obviously pretty important metric. Mm-hmm. And then things kind of got away from them versus Arsenal. I just think with Savic, Godot, Thompson, those are good players in the attack. Again, I'm gonna encroach on your position as the stats guy here. In that match against Arsenal, Savic, Godot, and Thompson, they combined for 4 progressive carries in the match. And unfortunately, that was everything the entire squad was able to muster against your Gunners. In contrast, Alessia Russo had 6 progressive carries by herself. And then Caitlin Ford, Mariana Caldente, and Emily Fox combined for another 9 progressive carries between the 3 of them. So Vålerenga, they had a hard time just moving the ball upfield against Arsenal. I gotta say, I don't want to count them out early. But if they had that kind of difficulty against Arsenal, we want to talk about the transitive property, it might be real tough sledding against Bayern Munich.
I think so. Yeah, they've only managed 1 goal and I think 34 shots total across the 2 matches. Let me just fact check that because that sounds not right. Yep, fact check complete. 34 shots over 2 matches, just 6 on target, just 1 goal. I think they're going to have to definitely get the efficiency up if they want any chance to kind of hang in and claw away a point against Bayern over these 2 matches here.
Yeah. And you know what, though? It's football, and Vålerenga are champions, and they play in a tough league. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, crazier things have happened for sure.
Yeah, and I think thinking back to Roma last year, obviously we talked Group of Life. They were on the outside looking in along with Bayern, and huge bounce back year for them as well. So I think it's great to see teams grow on the basis of kind of like playing in this tournament, hanging tough, playing against the big dogs, and just turning that into growth and maturity for their programs.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's gonna be tough sledding going into Munich on match day 3, but you take them into Norway, and then you see what happens on match day 4.
Love it. Yeah, maybe a little snow. Well, it will be mid-November, late-ish November. I don't know. I could see it. All right, 1 matchup left to hit. Where are you going with your 8th and final pick?
Only one place to go. Chelsea supporters, please feel free to yell at us in the comments not to take you last pick. Celtic versus Chelsea on match day 3, November 13th. I'm not taking your last pick because I think you are uninteresting, Chelsea. And Celtic fans, I hope to make more friends in Scotland as I can. I'm not taking you guys' last pick because I think you're uninteresting. I just think it's going to be really, really, really difficult for Celtic, whether you're playing in Glasgow, Scotland, or Glasgow, Delaware, Glasgow, Kentucky, Glasgow, Missouri, Glasgow, Montana, Glasgow, Pennsylvania, or Glasgow, Virginia. I think you're going to have a very difficult time playing Chelsea Football Club. No disrespect to you and where you are in your footballing journey. Chelsea looks like they are on an absolute mission. You had mentioned Lianne Sanderson on her podcast, how she moves at a Johanna Ritting-Kanerud type of pace when she talks about matches and when she goes through her program. Johanna Ritting-Kanerud is an absolute world beater right now. I don't think Celtic has an answer for her. I don't think any club in the world might have an answer for her right now. I think if you're Chelsea, you're not going to be happy with these 2 fixtures with anything less than 6 points and probably adding another 7 to your goal differential on the positive side.
Wow. I totally agree with that. And I think Kanerud, if she plays like this, she's got to be playing her way into the Ballon d'Or conversation. Ooh. Next year. It's hard to imagine a player that you can say this player is clearly playing better than Kanerud. She looks fast. She looks decisive. Just an absolute sharpshooter, when she lets it rip and playing super aggressive. I don't know if it's the absence of a Lauren James or just sort of some lineup machinations. Obviously Sam Kerr not back yet, but she's definitely stepped into that. Hey, jump on my back. I'm ready to just take on pretty much everybody. And I think Chelsea, they've got to feel a little bit disappointed. I mean, not to kind of like rewind back to last season, but they got to feel like they left one potentially on the table. You do the hard part. You go to Barcelona, you get a big time result, and then things kind of crumble from there. I wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea goes on an absolute tear. We didn't see any team clear the group stage last year with 18 points. Chelsea might be the team to do that this year.
Ooh, that's a good take. That's
excellent.
Thanks, man. That's good. You blew my mind a little bit with that. No, I think you're probably spot on. I mean, you got to get 2 versus Real Madrid if you're going to do that. Obviously on the board, Guro Reiten looks incredibly dangerous right now too. Mm-hmm. In case your defense doesn't have to worry enough about JRK over on one side. Erin Cuthbert, we already know she's going to be good for like one banger of a goal every like 3 to 4 matches. You mentioned Lauren James in her absence. Really interested to see what this is going to look like. Like, do I think it's going to play a role in these matches versus Celtic? Probably not. But you just have to monitor a superlative player like Lauren James. You got to monitor her health moving forward in the tournament, but we don't have to worry about that right now. LJ, speedy recovery to you, get your rest. We'll see how it looks down the road.
Totally. Love you, LJ. And just to kind of hit the conversation we had with Lianne as well, we talked about all the newcomers at Chelsea.
Yeah.
Sandy Baltimore, Sonia Bonpastor, Millie Bright back from injury, Lucy Bronze. So I think like a tremendous injection of talent and kind of didn't really lose anybody. Yep. You've got Aggie Beaver-Jones kind of growing into a role. JRK obviously playing on fire, Guro Reiten on the other side. I think there's a lot to be excited about if you're a Chelsea fan. And yeah, no disrespect. I'm sure we're not going to hear from any Chelsea fans at all about hitting their team last. They're just so super chill. I mean,
a known reasonable group of football fans, Chelsea Football Club supporters. So that's totally fair.
Even Kiel.
Straight down the line. What I will say about Celtic, yet to score.
My bad. Micah Hamano. I knew boss. I was missing.
Absolute boss. Yeah.
She is out of her mind right now. Apologies for the interjection.
No, great shout. Hamano's been absolutely fantastic. That she had a chippy over the weekend, just like completely audacious. Like, yeah, I'll score from like 35 yards out. We can knock this home. To talk about Celtic, tall order going up against a group of giants in London. I will say I like Saoirse Noonan's activity up top. I like Shannon McGregor's delivery on crosses and in set pieces. This is how we have seen, and again, like we don't purport ourselves to be like total historians, but the way this thing kind of works almost in any sport is you got to get to the dance. You might get smoked a couple times, and then you get back to the dance, and you learn, and you acquire new players, and you think about the strategies, and you take little bits from other teams and other clubs, and you kind of figure it out. This is an important step in Celtic's journey, and their supporters, they traveled to Madrid to watch them lose 4-0, but their supporters were chanting. They're doing the "Don't worry, be happy" chant through multiple parts of the match. They travel well. I think they sold out their complete allotment, if I heard the announcer on DAZN correctly, for their away tickets. Obviously, nice. London, a bit of an easier trip from Glasgow, so I'm sure they'll sell out their away allotment there as well. Enjoy it, man. You guys made the Champions League. Like, this is a great accomplishment. It's part of the journey. And, Celtic, you have to think if their ownership has the right mindset, they're just going to keep investing in this thing and keep on growing.
Totally. I'd love to see that. Obviously, great club, great energy, great history. And I think that history kind of continues to get written here on the women's side. All right, man. 8 matches up, 8 matches down. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
That was a marathon, buddy. We had a lot of thoughts. This is what happens when you and I don't podcast solo within 7 days. But you know what? As I always say, the UEFA Women's Champions League is a celebration of life, and I'm glad we covered all these matches the way we did.
Let's go. So I think we mentioned it enough on this episode, but yeah, we made an appearance on Lianne Sanderson's women's football show on talkSPORT 2. Go check that out. That was the episode that dropped Monday of this week. Quick programming reminder, we'll be back with an international break show, talking some USWNT and Euro qualifying. We'll be back after that with some NWSL awards and an NWSL playoff preview. All right, man, I think we did it. It's been another episode of Into the Channel. Sincere thank you for watching, listening, following, liking, subscribing, just plain hanging out with your boys. And remember to like if you liked, subscribe or follow into the channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app. Shout out to everybody that's done that. We appreciate you. 5 stars, by the way. Let's fucking go. You already know what time it is. Links to all of our socials in the show notes of this episode. And a big thank you to my co-host, Mr. Grant Angle, for stepping out of the way. Let me get my Arsenal takes off my chest. And that was a very gentlemanly thing of you to do. Let me go first. You already know what time it is. I mean, it's been much too long since you and I have done this show on our turf, but here we are back again. I appreciate you, bro.
Likewise, buddy. The chemistry is right there. You know, we could be, whether it's we're Jess Park and Bunny Shaw, maybe we're Rosa Cavaggi and Alessia Russo, or Mariona Caldente, who knows? That's just what we're doing. But we could not do it with all of you fine folks. Thank you for being our internet friends. We appreciate you. Again, shout out to SK Braun coming back to the Champions League. But thank you for all the other supporters of other clubs who are checking us out. And we will see you guys next time.